This is it, man. A few more seconds to showtime.
Two different levels, I cannot relate.
The more I read, the more I learned, the more I understood this was not a tool. This was a revolution.
Gotta let people know Bitcoin is money. It's not a commodity. It's not digital capital. It's not a digital gold. It's money. We gotta use it that way.
Family close, put in work and secure the bag and then take it back to my foes.
The Bitcoin way educates and empowers every individual on how to regain full control over their wealth, how to protect it, and how to get it right the first time, so that there's no mistakes and no anxiety in any stage of that process.
I think there are two important things that people should understand about self-custody. First of all is that it is critical. You only hold your wealth if you take 100% self-custody. In anything else, you're taking on counterparty risk. You're exposing yourself to government intervention, regulations, failed businesses, and so forth. But the second and another very fundamentally important thing about self-custody is that anybody can do it. It's a new set of skills, but it's not that complicated. You just need the right teacher to help walk you through the process to do it correctly the first time.
For once, we have an asset that you can truly own yourself, and it's critical to take ownership over this asset to maintain its power and to ensure that you are in charge of your money and your money doesn't get eaten up by inflation or any other thing that's happening around the world.
Self-custody is so important because the whole idea around Bitcoin is to move away from counterparty risk, to move away from centralization. And if you're storing your Bitcoin with counterparties, you're just delaying the real adoption of Bitcoin, where we separate money and state and have a better world. So if you really want to be a part of the change, your Bitcoin should be truly yours. It shouldn't be shared with anyone, and it should be used. You shouldn't be afraid to use your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin only will become what it is supposed to become if you really use it and know how to use it, more importantly, not just to store it.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to the Bitcoin Way Live. I have the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Yazbek here with me. Tony, how's it going?
Michael, TGIF, man, how's it going?
Going good, man. I'll tell you what, I used to look forward to Fridays a lot more before I worked in Bitcoin. I was always excited for the weekend to come, and now I'm a little bit sad that there's house projects to take care of and that sort of thing. And
Come on, man, it's always Friday in Bitcoin.
It's always Friday in Bitcoin. I love that. Yeah, man. Well, hey, the world's gone nuts. Obviously, we're gonna get to some of that stuff. I would encourage everyone who's joined. First of all, we really appreciate you being here. Start flooding us with comments, questions. We've got a new follower, OP Santos OX. Thank you for being here.
Welcome, welcome.
Nice to have you. Our friend Matthew Kappa is in the house. Time for the orange pill. Yes, that is what we are trying to do. Tony, I feel like the only sane thing about my life anymore is my family and my work in Bitcoin. And everything else just seems to be the lunatics have taken over.
It's funny how that works, when you are fully awake and aware of everything that is going on. Your life is no longer governed by fear and anxiety, right? You've strategically positioned yourself in a way that you are simply, outside the casualties. And that takes a lot of work. I mean, sometimes it sounds easy when you hear podcasts like this and people talking this way, but this is the result of many years and many hours of really disciplined concentration to protect yourself against a world that for the most part is rigged. I mean, the justice system is a farce. The money is an even bigger farce, and the people controlling it are complete lunatics. And so prior to 2009, like, the world was essentially stuck unless someone came up with a better alternative. But, those who have tried in the past, if you go back in history, you see how that usually ended, right? Either they somehow mysteriously vanished or something happened to them, and the story goes on up until the genie was finally released properly in 2000 and end of 2008, beginning of 2009, with the one thing that can really reshape history, and that is the money, right? Incorruptible, unconfiscatable, peer-to-peer electronic cash. And even though there are reports, perhaps valid, that this may have started as a very sinister intelligence project, somewhere along the line, either someone grew a conscience or something went wrong, and that project went open source. And ever since that took place, history has changed for the better, right? And so now there is a real competitor out in the wild that is in a very unique and strong position to reshape humanity itself by completely stripping the power of money from those that have always been in a position to abuse it. And here we are. The only downside to it is that even though it's been 17 years that it exists, most people still either don't understand it or just don't believe it's a viable solution. But the bad news that's going on in the world, the endless wars, the government overreach, the overtaxation, all that, all these horror stories are, the perfect free marketing and advertising department for Bitcoin's use case. And at some point, like I keep saying, even the most stubborn, most lazy, most resilient human being, they will run out of options, and they're going to need something to make their lives better. And ultimately, you can go in all directions that you want, but if your foundation is not secured, the money, your life is not yours, and you're always subjected by the lunacy of others, right? Those who genuinely believe they have the right to play God and dictate how you live, breathe, act, and raise even your kids. So there's a big number of folks that have already understood this and have opted out. All these sovereign individuals, but the opt out really has to start with the elixir of life, the money, the breaking of the reliance on third-party custodians. That's the lie we've been fed, right? And so that's why people still save money in a bank, still believe that worthless toilet paper has value. All of this is the result of decades of brainwashing, and it's going to take a little while before people stop thinking that way and actually move intelligently into something that's literally sets them free.
I couldn't agree more. And honest, it's why we do what we do, especially this YouTube channel. Like, I mean, we're not like a channel that just puts out content just for the hell of it. I mean, we don't have sponsors. Like, we're not making a bunch of money on YouTube, right? And now we're going to be announcing very soon for our clients that we're going to do a monthly live stream for their friends and family to introduce them to Bitcoin, which I'm incredibly excited about. We're all ready for those of you who are on here. Again, really, we got new comments coming in. Really appreciate you being here. We're also doing monthly live streams, not just like these sort of more informal live streams, but with we had a great one with our friends at Simple Mining, our friends at Microseed yesterday. If you want to link to that, shoot me an email, michaeljordan@thebitcoinway.com. We can get you access to that recording if you weren't registered. But we're doing all of this stuff to just educate people, let them know, because there are so many unreached people. They've heard about Bitcoin, they've bought into the FUD, they're watching all of the wrong channels and outlets telling you that Bitcoin is going to zero. It's tulip bulb mania all over again. It's a Ponzi. It's boiling the oceans, and none of that's true. And it's going to be an uphill battle, but it's the battle I think worth fighting here in the 21st century. And Tony, what you said is so important. Every day we are talking about more and more news that points people back to Bitcoin. It makes the case all that more compelling. The challenge is getting people to understand that there is a solution worthy of study, worthy of digging into, a rabbit hole worth going down. And I think more people are figuring it out. It's just, it's like I say, it's not as quickly as we hope, but not as long as we fear it will take. So Lots of great news in Bitcoin. We're going to talk a bit about that. Just some nice comments we have from folks who are tuned in. Mark from the UK, thank you. The channel should have many more followers. Great education. Appreciate that. Matthew Kappa says it's like reading the Bitcoin Standard again and again. Every time you read it, it's different. And Claude 1542 says 100% classes in session. That's what we like to hear. No charts, no price predictions, no BS, just straight up truth, facts, and teachings. That's what we're going for. If we start to talk about price too much, it's because AI has hijacked and cloned Tony, and we've reoriented our focus. Tony, so much news we could go through. We talked last time a lot about, I think it was last time. I get my shows confused at this point. A lot about Iran, all of the chaos in the world. We've got this story that broke. Zach XBT actually was heavily involved in investigating this. But so the son of the owner of Command Services and Support, which is a Virginia-based firm contracted by the U.S. Marshals to manage and custody seized cryptocurrencies by the government. So this kid, it looks like a kid to me, I don't know how old he is, was working for his dad's company, stole $46 million worth of crypto from the U.S. Marshals Service. Let me just say, I have my feelings on this couldn't be more mixed, because I don't support crime. I also think that the government is a criminal enterprise in and of itself, and I don't want them to have Bitcoin, certainly not confiscated Bitcoin. Why don't you give your thoughts on where do you stand on this?
It's funny, man, because, like from one end, the government steals from the people, and now the people steal right back from the government, right? What's funny about this particular story isn't, that somebody stole 46 million. It's who did this stealing. I don't know why the headlines, omitted this detail, but this Zach is the modern day Sherlock Holmes. I mean, this guy's fascinating in his ability to track these things and to, find who is responsible, which is, again, should be like a big warning sign for anyone dumb enough to commit a crime on using Bitcoin, right? Because it's completely transparent and it wasn't designed for that purpose. So the guy that teenager looking guy that was arrested was apparently the son of the CEO of the company that the government hired to protect that Bitcoin, right?
Balls.
So I can't possibly imagine, what the conversation at home is going to be like for this kid, right? Like, I mean, if this was your son, he'd be finished, right? Considering the public embarrassment that comes along with a story like this. But hey, when the incentives are there and the opportunity is there, most people will just go for it, because whether it's for the why not, I can do it, bragging rights, or whatever other reason goes through their head. Human nature is what it is. Given the right incentives, people are corruptible, right? I mean, good, bad, and ugly. That's never going to change. But funny story, man. I don't know what else to add other than I wish I was a fly on this guy's wall during, that dinner back home to see if what his dad unleashed on him.
Oh man, I can't even imagine. It also, although I bet he got out of town quickly. I think they caught, I can't remember where they caught him now. Somewhere else. It does underscore, though, what we talk about all the time in counterparty risk. People have this bias toward experts. They think that somebody else, because they have an expertise in Bitcoin custody, or they have an expertise in medicine, or an expertise in law, or anything else, that they somehow possess knowledge beyond what any of us can imagine, and that they are owed some sort of platform or authority, position of authority, because of that knowledge. And the reality is that humans are fallible. And this is a great example. This firm was literally hired by the federal government because they were deemed experts, sufficient experts to custody their cryptocurrency assets that they had seized. And what we find is people are people. And this kid, shouldn't have ever had access to that. Certainly not on his own, right? Like, I mean, this should be a complex multi-sig setup with like layers of standard operating procedures to ever move that Bitcoin, to ever do anything with it. Certainly, he could have worked with other people, but that's kind of the point: is that when you trust someone else, anyone else, with your keys, not your keys, not your coins. And you learn that very quickly. Actually, let's I'm gonna pull this up real quick, because this was an interesting one, and I think relevant to what we're talking about. And this was the so Voyager went under back in 2022. So I remember this because this was when I came into the space. And Terrence Michael says that when Voyager went under, Bitcoin's price was about 16,500, but you're only getting 35% of that if you're a creditor now. They've just announced this. So here's your $57.75, and oh, by the way, we're also only going to pay this out over 5 years, over 6 payments. So what you thought that you were going to get back, first of all, they didn't have all of it, obviously. You're not getting Bitcoin, you're getting a fiat denominated amount. And it's not enough to get you almost anything. $5,000 and amortized over 5 years is not going to get you anywhere near the Bitcoin that you lost when you trusted this counterparty. It's the same story over and over and over. It's people making mistakes and others outsourcing their trust to those people who make mistakes. It just doesn't work. Like, it's going to come back to haunt you.
This is the painful lesson of our time, right? Like that slow, really, really painful lesson that people, eventually everyone will learn, that if you still trust third-party custodians with your money, at some point, this is going to happen to you. And the fact that, they are trying to put together a package to give you back your money is a complete farce. They're laughing at you. The money's gone. There is no money. And so it was almost as laughable as the Lebanese banks promising that, they're going to give you back your money. And then, years go by and then tell you can only withdraw $400 or $40 a month from your worthless toilet paper that may be still in your bank account. When the money collapses, it's gone. There's no way to repackage it, because if they have to give you the money, well, they have to get it from somewhere, right? And that somewhere means they're stealing it from somewhere else, keeping that Ponzi going. And at some point, someone somewhere else is going to blow up. So that lie is what more people need to understand before they experience this devastation. So this counterparty risk, whether you're leaving your money in a bank or Bitcoin with a third-party exchange, or trusting a third party to manage your money, or borrowing against the most pristine asset humanity has ever known. All of this are risks that you don't need. People assume that either they're smarter than the ones before them who lost money, or somehow they're going to figure out a way where they're not susceptible to that counterparty risk. That is just an illusion. That is just setting yourself up for serious disappointment, because even if these platforms had good intentions, they are playing by rules that they do not control. And those who make these rules, those absolutely have no good intentions. Their entire premise of existence is to extract, to control, and to surveil. And they will always rig the chessboard in their favor. So this is a lesson that people are going to unfortunately learn the painful way. But again, the silver lining is that there are quite a number of folks that are doing the work, that are asking the questions, that are paying attention, and are just stepping away from that calamity. And it's just sad to watch and read these headlines over and over again, but there's really not more that we can do other than sounding like a broken record, pushing out this information and hoping more folks get the signal, right? Because if you're distracted doing God knows what and just running around in circles with nothing fundamentally changing, whether it's in your education, your bad habits, and what have you, well, you're going to keep smashing into that wall over and over again until, one day you just, there's no more energy left in you. And then maybe you will start, acting differently.
Yeah. And by the way, the counterparty risk extends beyond just you're not going to get your coins back. So full disclosure, this was back when I was still an idiot, hadn't gone down the rabbit hole. I had a ledger on the unforgivable sin. And I'd staked some of my Bitcoin on BlockFi. And so I was earning yield. And by the way, I want to get to a comment here in just a minute we need to address, but, I assume Ledger's had like a million data breaches, right? Like it's like every couple of weeks they have a new data breach. And I would assume that the way that the attackers found out that I was on or suspected perhaps I was a BlockFi user was, hey, if this guy was dumb enough to use Ledger and we have his data now, we know that, here's his name and email address at the very least. I started getting spam emails about how to claim what I was owed being a creditor to BlockFi. I'd gotten that. Fortunately, I had figured out the whole I'd stepped in the right direction of self-custody before BlockFi went under. So I didn't lose anything. But like last week, I got my 20th email from BlockFi saying, hey, here's how you go claim your rewards. They're still trying to steal people's Bitcoin. And so your data is out there too. When you go to these KYC exchanges, you have to go, first of all, you have to do that knowing that there's always that risk, right? Like your data could be leaked. Even the best firms are going to be under constant barrage of cyber attacks. But some are, working much more diligently and care much more about you than others, and is demonstrably true. A place like River, it's not that I trust them to hold my keys, but I would trust them as a place where I could securely buy Bitcoin, move it into self-custody. So you have to really consider all of those things. Tony, I like Ken B's comment here. Dad yelling, who took the hard drive from my desk drawer? That's probably about how it happened. Like we laugh and we're like, some version of that, probably not much better is kind of what happened. And,
it must be as dumb as that, because you would assume that the government would do its highest level of due diligence. And, when they select their winner, that winner must have passed all sorts of security checks, right?
I have a feeling the dad knew
joke is that the guy opened the drawer and just pulled out, the right piece of information, and he's off to God knows where to party.
I think we should ask Grok who Dean Dagita, the CEO or the owner of that company, who he's connected to in the federal government. What's his background? Wouldn't surprise me one bit if they got that contract because of someone being a friend of someone in government. Tony, I've got to address this one, man. We have a hater here. Ethereum is better. It has utility and it's Decentraland. Bitcoin is like gold, just an electronic rock with no cash flow. Don't worry, we've got some folks dunking on Aster Star 9, Matthew Kappa, and a handful of others I saw here. But hey, this is
Ethereum has no value as money. Ethereum might have some value as a tech-related thing, right? Like it's bet on it just like any other stock or tech company. But beyond that, relying on it with your life savings is a suicide. The mere fact that there's a group of individuals that can decide what happens to Ethereum, they can rewind and change the rules, on a moment's notice, is exactly why you should not touch it with anything meaningful.
The fact that you can earn yield natively on it tells you not where's that yield coming from. It's either you or they're printing it, effectively is what's happening. The yield on Bitcoin is freedom. It's what I always say. I will die on that hill. Anything else where you're earning yield on a protocol, certainly a protocol that's changed as readily. Proof of stake is inherently a centralizing force. It just, guys, Stake and Shake isn't going to start accepting your Ethereum, I don't think. And if they do, they'll learn the hard way that they shouldn't have done that to begin with. And I think these companies who are waking up to Bitcoin are going to continue to be emboldened as they learn more, grow in their conviction, and they see their purchasing power of their treasuries increase. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Cloud says makes a great point. River also shows proof of reserves. Yeah, yes. And I think you know what? I'm a free market guy. You don't have to show proof of reserves, but I'm sure as hell not going to trust you if you don't. And that's why we like places like River. And they're not the only one, but they're a great one here in the US, and there are others. But that's why when I get turned off by, you know, Sailor, you know, hand waving away why they can't show proof of reserves for security reasons. You know, like if first of all, I'm not in it for fiat gains. If I was, I would be very cautious of something like Strategy's products, simply because I don't know if they have the Bitcoin. If they do, they're in a great financial position, and you'll probably make some fiat gains because they have 600,000+ Bitcoin. But I'm not going to toy around with that either way, but especially if they won't demonstrate for you that we actually know we have the Bitcoin. And also, I wouldn't trust Coinbase, right? Like, I think, you know, they spread their custody, I think, across a few providers. But if Coinbase is even involved, if I get a whiff of Brian Armstrong being involved in just about anything, I mean, I am running. It's just not.
Bitcoin changes the rules, man. It forces you to adopt honesty and transparency, and a lot of people, you know, don't like that because it doesn't serve them. And so, you know, they stick to their, you know, their old tricks, their old tactics. And to me, it explains why so many folks are always skeptical of everything, right? Because there's so much marketing, there's so much storytelling. And then you fast forward to some period in time, and it turns out that it's a lie, that it was a scam. People got hurt, people got lost money. And so nobody trusts anyone, right? But despite all of this, people seem to filter out the trusting third parties with their money. Even though they trust no one with anything else, they trust the last thing they should be trusting to someone just because they've got a nice brand name or they have a high marketing budget and you see their name pop up everywhere. These lessons are going to be learned painfully, unfortunately.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, so for everyone who's watching in the chat, one of the things we want to get to, I know we talk about this a lot, but I think there's a huge overlap between AI and Bitcoin. I think AI is going to be a catalyst for the growth of Bitcoin adoption, because I think people are going to need it to fuel the models, the LLMs that they use. I think that it's going to natively adopt Bitcoin as a means of transferring value across the world. However, Tony, you and I do not see eye to eye on this one. So, hang on, let me get this pulled up here. So, someone connected living brain cells to an LLM. Hey, by the way, I'm offering to anyone, if you're in the chat and you're like, guys, don't care about AI, leave it alone. I mean, feel free to chime in here. But Cortical Labs grew 200,000 human neurons in a lab, kept them alive on a silicon chip. They taught the neurons to play Pong, then Doom. Now someone wired them into an LLM, real brain cells firing electrical impulses to choose every token the AI generates. You can see which channels were stimulated, the feedback from the neurons, and choosing that letter or word. So biology is integrating with AI. And Tony, I think you and I are on different planets when it comes to this, man. You get so excited about this stuff, and all I see is just dystopian nightmares. What's your...
You see dystopian nightmares because this is not your playing field, right? And so all you see is probably relatable to some movies that you've watched in the past, where, you know, you've got the mad scientist just blowing shit up all over the place and causing, you know, a nightmare for everybody else around it. But the fact is, I mean, this is expected. For me, I get excited over this because I'm actually alive in a time where we are seeing something so extraordinarily revolutionary that is just mind-blowing to me. Super intelligence that's accessible to 8.3 billion people, super intelligence that will be integrated in everyday lives, whether like it is now in a computer or at some point in the very near future in a human-like, you know, entity, those humanoids, right? And it depends in whose hands this falls. The technology itself is neutral. It's not necessarily bad or good. It depends who uses it. And as long as there's more people using it for good things, the world will become like an exponentially better place. I mean, we will leap from wherever we are now, like in 100 into the future within a couple years with something as insane as this, right? So how this world looks like, I mean, you can only speculate, and your limit is your imagination. But I do see a future where there's a lot of positivity to this. And of course, there's always going to be some idiot out there that creates a nightmare. But, given enough time, and if you look back at history, bad things are usually overcome by good people eventually, right? And so as long as these odds remain in our favor, I don't see why you should be fearful of this. The world progresses, it doesn't go back in time. The difference is this time this progression is so huge that it's just like distorting everybody's brain cells. Like it's too much, right? The first one was the money, incorruptible, unconfiscatable money that is not issued by government and central bank. To this day, people are like, what the fuck, man? This can't be possible. It sounds too good to be true, but yet here it is. It is true. And it's just, becoming more and more integrated in our lives. Even the wrong people, those who hate it and who are threatened by it, are adopting it, but they're trying to rebrand it. That's another conversation. Then you add this new genie that's out of the bottle to the mix, which is those advanced learning algorithms, AI. And you combine the two together, and you've got this, holy shit, what are we walking into future, right? And so it is extremely exciting, but it will require us to adapt, and adapt very quickly, because if we don't, you will be assimilated. Like, I mean, AI is already nuking, like, I don't know, God knows how many jobs, and that's not going to stop. And the jobs that it's nuking primarily are, you can call them, like the basic level jobs. But I can assure you, this is going to rapidly go up the food ladder. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, architects, all of these will be replaced by super intelligence, because one, they're always self-learning, they don't make mistakes, and they never tire. And so the world that these guys are going to create is going to bring everything's cost down to zero ultimately, right? So the deflationary world is destroying the inflationary one. And so that's where we have, like, I see this like we're sort of at this intersection right now, and it's going to be a war, because those who are powerful in this inflationary world don't want this world, and they are trying to contain it by ridiculous ideas around regulations and censorships and blah blah blah. That's not going to work anymore. It's like, again, like if you ever wished you had a genie that you can rub, and poof, and he grants you all the wishes that you want, this is it. And it's called AI, and it's not going anywhere, because now a lot of people are aware of it, a lot of people are really good at it, and the excitement and the incentives to keep pushing its advances are on full throttle.
I wish I was as optimistic. Here's the thing. So first of all, I think there's, I think progress, medicine, I think all of those are natural phenomena in the world. Where I get stuck is when technology becomes a replacement for humanity. I think is to some degree what it amounts to. Like I think people have illnesses, and you leverage the best technology to treat them, take care of them. There are probably controversial and questionable methods that I would take issue with, but in general, I can accept that. I think that part of the human experience is being human, and that includes pain and suffering and death. And without those things, I think we're sold short on what life is, like what makes a life. Like the part of the reason I can love my wife the way that I do is because I know that she won't be with me forever. If she was never taken away from me, it would be harder for me to feel that same sort of commitment. And so if we can just clone her and make an AI version of her, it's like this whole thing never ends. I don't have to like cherish every moment. And especially if I continue in perpetuity as well, it's like, it's not really me, but it's kind of me. And I don't know. I think pain is just part of the story for humans. And I want to minimize the unnecessary pain. The war in Iran, great example of human suffering, completely needless and senseless. But I think death is just something that comes about. And my concern is that we end up with a bunch of Christine Lagarde clones and a bunch of Klaus Schwab clones and a bunch of Keir Starmer clones and not a lot of Tony Yazbek clones. And so all the freedom fighters die because they don't want to clone you. And we end up with just a bunch of central bankers running around and, touching kids.
No, man, you'd be surprised, and I think you're just focusing on one specific point, and to a certain degree, I agree with you. The human touch is extremely valuable, and I don't think you're going to replicate this. And the fact that everybody's on limited time, that's really what gives your life that meaning and that value. However, the advancements that this form of technology brings to the world, cannot be understated. And one very simple example is if you fast forward a few years ago back to COVID, you understand that the trust in the whole medical system has been completely destroyed, right? Why would you go back to a world where you have to trust these morons, these liars, these corrupt people on screen who are lying to your face for pure profits, when now you've got a neutral algorithm, a neutral system there that is not, necessarily programmed to be evil. It's open source, right? It's neutral ground that is giving you the truth. It's fueling you with the information that you need to get the right information. And so there's a lot of that's going to be out there. Again, breaking the dependence on what we previously thought was required. The experts. Fuck the experts. The experts are corruptible. They are incentivized by profits. The judicial system is a farce, right? If you don't belong to the right club, you go through a different set of rules. The medical system, that's why they wanna tame AI in New York, because these lunatics don't want people to understand the truth so that they can keep raping you with their high invoices and their high bills and their high hourly rates, right? There's a reason why they keep attacking, truthful, neutral, uncensorable technology, is because their incentives are threatened by it. And so AI unlocks all of this, man. That's why I'm saying it's such a huge game changer. We're not touching on, the life and death and, finality of time aspect of things. I'm looking at it from a progressions lens, right? Like, how is this going to improve our everyday existence? How is that going to make the world a lot more affordable to everyone? How is this going to eliminate the majority of corruption and crime around the world, right? Again, by stripping that power from human beings in a position to abuse it. This is what Bitcoin, this is what AI, eventually at some point is going to allow, right? And it's going to not just allow, I think it's going to ensure that we cannot go back to old habits and all this nonsense that we're seeing. Because, for far too long, man, if you just read back in history, how many millions of people have suffered because of the decisions of a handful of psychopaths? I mean, that line has been drawn, I think, in 2009, because everything that was fueling this evil, now we know what it is. It's the broken money. Take that out, kill that product. That can't happen anymore, right? Yeah. So, I mean, this is a very deep rabbit hole. And of course, there's going to be pros, cons to everything. And a lot of it is unknown. But I am definitely not pro not advancing because of, isolated cases where it may not be a good idea, right?
I think you might. I hear you, and I do think AI is an incredible opportunity to advance the human race, our productivity, efficiency. I think there will be breakthroughs that just wouldn't have been possible, obviously, I think, with AI. And I think Bitcoin coupled with AI means an incredibly bright future in certain aspects, like in certain ways. I still fear that, the people who are going to have these more advanced technologies are going to be the fiat fueled companies that have created the dystopia that we know today. And I am cautious that we're going to have access to that before they do, because we won't. That said, I agree with you. I think that there is a bright spot. Like there's a decentralization that I think takes place that enables and equips individuals, families, local communities to do incredible things that just wouldn't have been possible, and at least to compete in a way that they couldn't before. Tony, this is Claude said a great topic would be to have someone on to talk about decentralized health and medicine. That would be we should get Ahmad Moose, Saifuddin's brother.
Yeah,
He'd be an interesting guy to have on. And I'd love to hear his opinion on some of these topics we're discussing. But I'll tell you what. So I brought up this New York law, or they're what they're pushing for is to ban AI from answering questions about medicine, law, engineering. They're basically protecting a wealthy.
They're protecting their pockets. That's what they're doing. They don't give a shit about you.
Yeah,
it's about protecting their revenue stream.
Clearly, like, so I'd gone back and forth with my LLM on optimizing my diet for a specific purpose, and like I've already done the work. I've done the proof of work to figure out, hey, here's kind of what I do. Here's what I eat. Okay, now how do I optimize for, time of day, calorie, if I've got, count as specific goals. Okay, how do I optimize my workout program? I would have to go find someone like Dr. Amoose to help me fine tune my diet for a specific purpose and pay him a lot of money. And by the way, he is my doctor. Like I do an annual checkup with him. I don't have like a normal primary care doctor. I would have to go find some sort of like a fitness coach to charge me X per hour, or, a lump sum to, customize a workout program for me. And instead I can just, have a back and forth. And it took me a couple of hours total, not in one sitting, but over the course of a couple of days to dial in and fine tune this thing. And it was access to not only all of the literature that's out there, including all the biased, nonsense of the mainstream sort of methods, but also the Paul Saladinos, the Sean Bakers of the world, who are doing things a very different way. And I came up with something that I think makes a lot of sense. New York is now saying, and by the way, Tony, I'll have you comment on just the lunacy of this, but they're proposing, no. Just like you have to keep using taxis instead of Uber because, Uber is disruptive to this, this powerful lobby. You can't use AI. These LLMs that are trained on all of the literature in all of the world, you have to go spend $300 an hour on a lawyer. You have to go in person and visit a primary care doctor who is the only one who can give you real medical advice, because that's some mystical thing that we seek or think we're supposed to have. It's truly insane. But why don't you give your take on this whole New York thing?
This whole New York thing is stupid people making stupid comments, thinking that enough people are just going to take their word for it, and and that's just how things are going to be. It's not. You cannot contain revolutionary ideas like Bitcoin or AI. This is open source code. Like I've said it a million times, it's almost as retarded as saying, you're going to stop the wind from blowing. Like, how are you going to do this? It's just a new reality that they absolutely hate, because there's literally nothing they can do about it. And it's just a matter of time before enough people clue into this and take off. This is, where that slowly, and then poof, suddenly it's everywhere. It's going to happen with Bitcoin. It's already starting, starting there. And it's going to ultimately happen with AI, because the cost of access is dropping. The hardware required to run it efficiently is dropping, and people are just getting more comfortable with it as time goes on, because it's becoming easier to comprehend, easier to use, and people help each other. You create something wow, and your friends all of a sudden are mind blown. They want to learn, so you teach them, and then they come up with other ideas, and before you know it, you've gone off on a whole separate dimension with whatever ideas you have, and just take that and multiply it by the millions of other folks out there that are doing the same thing. Collectively, look at what that world looks like, right? Yeah. So the exploitation ends since Bitcoin was born and when AI became as accessible as it is to 8.3 billion people. This is the conflict that we're on. Those who survived through parasitical means and exploitation now have a cure. There's a cure to put them out of business. They don't want that cure. And so what we're seeing now is every bloody idea under the sun to try to kill that cure, right? But it's not going to happen. It's one of those ideas literally whose time has come. And once it's here, the genie's out, man. There's no going back.
I think you'd agree with this. One of the risks of AI, like just the convenience of these simple LLM models that we experience today, like that I was going back and forth with, is it's very easy to make you lazy, a lazy thinker. The reason I'm able to, like if you went to an AI model that knew nothing about Bitcoin or that didn't know anything about your conviction in Bitcoin, your research in Bitcoin, and you asked its opinion on Bitcoin, maybe some are a little bit more objective in providing information and would give you something useful and maybe point you toward Bitcoin. But certainly some of these models are biased against things like Bitcoin or anything outside of the mainstream, right? Like, I mean, they will give you all of the things that you learned in public education. That's what they're going to basically spit out. What I think is important for people to consider as they try to leverage AI is you still have to put in, I believe, you still have to put in the proof of work on the front end. So when you engage with these models to get something useful out of them, you already know sort of the trajectory that you're on. So my diet workout example, I already know that the AI model can tell me to eat kale and spinach, and there's no way in hell I'm doing it. I don't eat that stuff. The AI model is going to tell me to eat a bunch of grains and tell me I need a bunch of fiber, and I'm not going to do that stuff. I've already done the work outside of AI supporting me to understand I have an opinion on this subject, and here are the reasons why I'm not going to do it. So AI, LLM, help me build this around what I know to be important and what I care about. And it's true if you're asking about health, it's true if you're asking about Bitcoin, it's true if you're asking about medicine or law or anything else. You need to understand the fundamentals in order to be able to evaluate what AI is telling you. Because the open source models, yes, I think are going to be more useful in the future. But most of the LLMs that people are engaging with today honestly, it's ChatGPT for, I think, probably the average person. And it's going to spit out. It's not even giving you an answer. It's regurgitating a mainstream narrative most of the time. So you've got to be really cautious of that.
Well, the thing is, these AI is going to, I think, redefine the echelons of success going forward, right? If you're going to be stuck using, those brain dead regulated versions of AI like ChatGPT and what have you, then yes, it's very possible that what you just described always remains the case. These are very biased, very censored, very, programmed forms of AI. But the real power is in those that are not controlled, that are completely open, fully uncensored. And their role is not necessarily to be good or evil. Their role is to provide information based on the inputs that you give it. So as a human being, I mean, human beings created AI, right? So theoretically, we're supposed to, no matter how intelligent they are, we're supposed to be in a position where we can always remain ahead. And so, but we can use that super intelligence to accelerate that fast forwards, right? So if you don't want to eat certain things, I mean, you can provide this data to your AI, and the AI is not going to come back and tell you, no, you're an idiot, you have to do this. It's going to say, okay, well, he wants this. Let me give him a picture of maybe things he's not considering. And then, it provides you back with that alternative. And then, there's this back and forth. And ultimately, you make the decision, but using information that had it not been for this AI that has access to tons of things that you don't even know about, your conclusions may have been very different. And it could have saved you a lot of mistakes, a lot of pain, a lot of, whatever it is. So that's where I think the AI, boosts your potential as a human being, as long as you remain on top of it. But yes, if you want to be a TikTok brain and ask the AI how you're doing, well, then yeah, like, I mean, your life is going to be very different than someone, for example, like myself, who's very optimistic on this tech and has many ideas to know how to use it in order to create something that, has the potential to really reshape the world and provide benefits that without this technology would be, like literally impossible.
I completely agree. The irony of it all, of course, in New York is that they are telling you you're not allowed to use AI. You have to go to talk to a doctor for medical advice. And increasingly, your doctor is going to be using AI to double check their work, to do their work, to make a determination on prescriptions and diagnoses and prognoses. Like that's coming. And so basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to force you to remain dependent. To me, this is nothing besides just self-serving to their, these lobbyists. It's a means of keeping you trapped. They're saying,
100%.
we know you have these tools at your disposal. We know that the experts are using those tools, and we want you to still have to go to a middleman. And I don't care that you only have $50 in your checking account and you can't afford a $300 an hour attorney. You're out of luck. You have to go hire them if you want, access to the information and the knowledge that they have, when the information and knowledge that they have and so much more is right at your fingertips. It's $20 a month, and you can go ask any question anytime, day or night, and probably get a more robust answer. And if you're willing to step back and think critically and dig in and spend an hour on the problem and not just do a quick prompt because you don't want to think, you're going to get a much better solution at the end of the day, I think.
Of course, man. I mean, that's why they called it rat poison, because, it does AI and Bitcoin kills the rats. And the rats are these parasites that have, for centuries always been in a position to use and abuse. And, and they were able to do this because they controlled the money. And now for the first time ever, and again, this is why it's so mind-blowing to me that we're actually alive to witness the birth of something like this. For the first time ever, that ends. Like, you don't understand. You no longer have to be fearful, because you can literally take back the control right now by simply deciding to take yourself out of that shitty product and into a better one, and structure your life in that direction. Like, anybody can do it. It's going to take some time. It's not a light switch, but those steps are not rocket science, right? I mean, there's millions of folks already doing it. And the more people wait and the more people keep themselves, at a disadvantage, the harder it's going to get to, to exit, whatever dystopian nightmare is headed their way going forward. Because again, the side of evil is very well aware about the threat of good, right? And so that's why you're going to see even more extremes come about. And the window of time, the exits, so to speak, are, I guess, at some point going to disappear. And when they do, that's when you have a much higher risk of violence, which ties into that earlier story that we were talking about, where they are already prepping the military to contain civil unrest. So if they're already doing this, that means, like, however bad we think things are, they're probably anticipating something much worse, which is why they're taking these preemptive measures from now. To me, this is like the siren bells, going off at full blast here, because I've been warning about this for 3 years. I keep telling you that at some point, this is going to happen. It's unavoidable. And so that is this ugly movie that no one has seen before, and no one can predict how it plays out, because you're dealing with folks, first of all, that have lost everything, have nothing further to lose, and are running on pure instinct and adrenaline.
Yes. And this is the story you alluded to there, Tony. Trump's administration is implementing a National Guard quick reactions force trained for crowd control and civil
By
unrest.
April. That's next month.
Next month. why are they concerned about civil unrest and crowd control? Like what are they doing that might instigate that? Could it be an unpopular war in the Middle East again?
Could it be nuking your purchasing power to zero or restricting access to your funds? Could that reality come true finally?
Not locking up pedophiles? I mean,
you understand?
The list goes on and on. Yeah, and I think that's the point. The other point that we make time and time again, and this is, if I could, so I just recorded my segment for next week's Off the Chain. It's our Tuesday segment on our channel. So if you're not subscribed, we'd love for you to do that. Feed the algorithm, tell people about it. But I was talking about what's so frustrating as a Bitcoiner is that we understand that these tools exist. And it is Bitcoin. I think first and foremost, preeminently, it is Bitcoin. But there are also other tools at your disposal. We talk a lot about cybersecurity, protecting your online privacy, setting up a privacy phone, having a plan B. I think in my own personal life about ways that I can achieve self-sovereignty, having a reserve of fuel, like I'm digging into getting chickens and like doing all these other things so I can provide for myself. I can ignore, like any way that I can begin to ignore what goes on in the rest of the world, I think it creates for a much more peaceful life and a much better life. And those are all the things that we talk about all the time. I do want to, for anyone who's interested, I do want to share this. We would love for you to come schedule a call with our team. I've got the QR code there. You can scan it. Free 30-minute consult. We'd love to talk to you about how we help with self-custody. But I think that is the important first step that everyone needs to take. Buy Bitcoin, accumulate Bitcoin, earn Bitcoin, and then take it into self-custody. The only way you defund these people, the pedophiles, the elites who are screwing everything up in your life, is by defunding them. Bitcoin and self-custody is the only answer. And then one other thing I do want to highlight here is we've got a webinar coming up in 11 days with our friend. He's an Aussie. His name's Zane Truscott, hardcore Bitcoiner, Toxic Maxi, awesome guy. We're going to be doing that as well. You can register at this QR code. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be 60 minutes of Q&A. So we hope that these live streams are an opportunity for you to engage with us and ask questions. But we like to sometimes package it in a more formal way because we've got a lot of things to discuss here on our live stream. We're just going to be there for 60 minutes to answer your questions on this webinar live stream. Would love to have you there. Tony, we're starting to run low on time, but we've got a few comments. So one of them, so there's a little debate raging right now here in the chat on this Ethereum advocate is being responded to. You might need to do a little bit more learning on Bitcoin. Recommend watching these live podcasts and Bitcoin banter, and get on a call with the Bitcoin Way. So Tony, we got a friend of the Bitcoin Way sending an Ethereum maxi.
Thank you, Claude. This is definitely the way.
Yeah. And this was the comment he was responding to. Bitcoin's treated as a tech stock. Basically, gold recently tracked money supply better than Bitcoin. I would say
he's right. He's right that it's being treated as a tech stock right now.
Yes.
And this is part of the attack vector that I keep referencing, is because they can't kill the tech, but they try to reshape the narratives around it. They want you to believe that Bitcoin is a volatile asset, that it's no different than a tech stock, but that's not what it is. Bitcoin is the money itself, and as long as you don't fall for these lies and you treat it as such, you very quickly understand why, given enough time, as you increase your savings in sound money, none of these macro factors will affect your everyday life, right? But as long as you keep believing this bullshit and remain dependent on their system, then yeah, I mean, this is a rigged chessboard. They screw around with the numbers. They up and down, the volatility on moment's notice. I mean, this is what their system was built to do. And so when you try to force sound money into a fake world, well, of course it's going to suffer and have the same symptoms as any other asset in there. But take yourself out of it. Don't fall for these lies and that counterparty risk, and you'll very quickly realize that the world is very different on a Bitcoin standard, that no one can manipulate or stop you from saving and transacting in.
Yeah, I think gold has legs for a little while longer because I think it's what people know. We're still so early in Bitcoin
Of
that
course.
I think if your goal is self sovereignty and you want to self custody gold, you might have a few more years where that could be useful. I think if you're looking for fiat returns, I think you could get a gold ETF and like you might make some fiat returns. The
Maybe.
question is the question is, what's your time horizon? Are you trying to win over the next 5 years, or are you trying to win for the rest of your life and for your for future generations? Like then it becomes very clear the path that we're on, and it's Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. It's just I hate these unfair comparisons where like, well, gold is up, or even like some other cryptocurrency. It's like if all you're looking at is the dollar denominated value, then at 1% global adoption, Bitcoin's going to be volatile and we're going to see something else outperform it in dollar terms. And that's going to happen for some period of time until suddenly it isn't going to happen. And then you're going to wish that you just listened to people like us and said, oh, like maybe my life could be simpler if I just studied Bitcoin. I just adopted it as my savings vehicle, took self custody, and I ignored all of the other noise out there. I think that is people are going to be kicking the hell out of themselves for
Yes.
50 years to come because they heard this message on some random live stream on a Friday, afternoon. And they said, no, I think I'm smarter than that. And I've got an answer. It's not that we're smart. It's just that we've done some work to figure out what this thing is and we know where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Bitcoin will probably be the most violent regret for a lot of folks.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, we got a handful of other comments, and then we need to wrap up here, Tony. So our friend John, he said, "You voted for an SBR. You got a National Guard patrolling the streets."
Congratulations.
No kidding. I'm glad he freed Ross, and after that, it's been downhill. Someone else, OP Santos OX, agreed with me. That's my goal: get a piece of land with my own source of water, fruit trees, chickens, and just live peacefully.
That's what it's about, man. Come down to Central America and we'll point you in the right direction. Plenty of folks doing exactly that.
I was going to say, so that's the path that I've taken, and Tony and the guys have been down there onboarding 50 people into a Plan B residency in Panama. I actually today, it might already be out. Go check out our YouTube channel for my podcast episode with Meyer Misaki, mayor of Panama City. He's a Bitcoiner, and it's what's cool about it is in Panama, it feels like it's being embedded into the culture in a way that it's not like a top down. I mean, he's an encouraging
bottoms up movement here. The foundations are being built for that purpose.
The banks are adopting it. Like the banks are adopting it and trying to make it easier for you to move and migrate your wealth, your Bitcoin wealth into the country, if that's what you need to do. Obviously, we're believers in self-custody, but for certain expedient use cases, you might need to transfer that to someone who you're buying property from or something. And there may be a justification. The fact that it's happening without someone mandating it or a legal tender law requiring it, that to me is high signal happening in Panama. And I think, and Tony, to your point, it's a whole swath of Bitcoiners, libertarians, freedom-minded people who are beginning this migration to Panama, and we get to have a front row seat to watch it all happen. And it's going to be
and for the record, you can buy land and homes and a whole bunch of other things in Bitcoin here in Panama. It's not a hurdle.
Yeah, they're making it easier and easier every day. Tony, I think that's a good place to wrap, man. We got to tell people why Panama. We got to talk about self-custody, and we got to butt heads over the.
Yeah, for anyone who's looking for a good, freedom-loving jurisdiction, definitely connect with us. Let's get on a call. We'll give you all the information. Our legal team here, our people on the ground here are extremely well connected, and so there's literally nothing for you to do other than pay the bill and show up and enjoy your new life, surrounded by a whole bunch of like-minded individuals that we will, introduce you to. So no, again, nobody's stuck. The options are available for everyone. I don't think these options are going to remain available at the current price points for very long, considering the insane demand that we're seeing these days. So just keep that in mind.
Completely agree with that, Tony. Alrighty, guys, we got some thank yous to wrap this up. Guys, we appreciate you all being here. Truly, Tony and I love having these chats. It's so much fun. It makes it a lot more enjoyable when you guys chime in, give your commentary, ask questions, and express your gratitude, because we put a lot of time into this sort of thing, and we appreciate everyone just joining us for this journey. So thank you. We'll be back again same time on Monday. We'll talk about a whole new swath of topics and news stories, and try to send some Bitcoin signal your way. But to everyone out there, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Tony, good chatting, man. Safe travels this weekend, and we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good, dude. See you later.
Cheers.